Hey guys, I got a little bit something for you today. Not a lot. I don't have the data in front of me since I'm driving home right now, obviously. But it's something interesting that I realized that I had. So one of the data sets that I collected was comparing how the popularity for Trump and Biden were before they ran for president. So for Biden, that was as early as you can get it. Same with Trump. This goes back to the website Civics. So on Civics, you can break down the demographics into very small chunks. You can get the age, the party, the how educated they are, their race, etc., right? So let's say you can pick 18 to 34 year olds who are independent and Hispanic without a college education, and then you can pick male, for example, and then it will give you the poll for that very specific demographic, right? So out of curiosity, back in July of last year, specifically July 2nd, I went through the polls on Civics and broke it down by race and independent. So, independent black people, independent white people, independent Hispanics, and independent other. Which other would be like, you know, the Native Americans, the Native Alaskans, the Native Hawaiians, Asians, like Arabic people, Slavic maybe. Slavic might be included in white, but basically any race that's not black, Hispanic, or white. Okay? And I just rediscovered this data recently. And I was curious, because I went back to as far back as the Civic polls started. So for Trump, that was sometime in 2015. Whereas for Biden, his started in 2019. And then I compared it from those dates to the current dates. So with Trump, from 2015, whatever month and day that was, to July 2nd, his favorability among black independents across the board was 16%. And then I went through and did all the different combinations of education, age, and male and female. So you have male and female, which is 2 times college education, non-college educated, postgraduate, which is 3, and then you had 18 to 34, 35 to 49, 50 to 64, and 65 plus, which is 4. So 2 times 3 times 4, which is 24 different categories. Okay? So like 18 to 34 who are college educated and male. 18 to 34 who are college educated and female. 18 to 34 non-college educated male, then female, and then 18 to 34 postgraduate male, and then female. So that one age category had 6 subcategories due to that. And then I went through and determined how Trump and Biden were doing amongst the different independent demographics. So there's 4 race categories, 24 subcategories, and then just race and independent. So that's 25 per each race, which is 100 per person, Trump and Biden, 100 categories per Trump and then per Biden. So 200 categories altogether. Now, from July 2nd, I'm comparing that to today, where the polls currently had stopped, which was April 23rd. It had been 297 days, or 296 days since July 2nd. And it will be 226 days to Election Day. And I found some very interesting stuff. For one, I had made predictions based on how many people would vote, which would be about 2/3 of the country, roundabout. And that 3% of the people would be undecided by the time the election actually hit. So, for the 2020 election, 14% of independent black voters voted for Trump. And then like 52% of independent black voters voted for Biden. By July 2nd of last year, 16% of independent black voters were swinging for Trump. Back in 2015, 16% of black independent voters were also swinging for Trump. Okay, so there was no change between those two. And by the 2016 election, I believe it was still around like 14% that actually did vote for Trump. So again, no change whatsoever. So you would expect by now that there would still be no change for Trump. It would still be 16% of independent black voters that support him. Well, it's actually 21%. It actually went up. And what was fascinating too is on Civics, it'll tell you significant dates in the calendar. So it'll tell you days that Trump got indicted. And he was indicted 3 times on that calendar, okay? Trump's numbers after each indictment didn't really decrease that much, but they did decrease slowly over time. So it was like, I don't know, 77% were unfavorable towards Trump, right? And then it went up to like 79 or 78, something along that lines. Well, then it went down to 77, and favorability went from 16 before the indictments to like 14 after the indictments to 21. And the major event that started all of it was, one, the Hamas conflict, which shook it up and started to cause the numbers to waver and to steady out instead of decrease for Trump and increase for Biden. And then the State of the Union address, of all things, started to improve Trump's numbers and worsen Biden's numbers, at least for black independents. Which is fascinating. And I have this distinct feeling that it's also because the court cases for Trump are more heavily in the news. And that's just a theory. You would actually have to question the voters and why they are starting to become more favorable to Trump. But based on how Trump treats black people when he meets them, he treats them like people, compared to how Biden treats them, where he treats them like voters, there's a distinct difference. Is Biden seems to kind of pander to them, whereas Trump doesn't seem to. Now, a lot of influencers and commentators on the left are kind of talking about how they think it's offensive that Trump believes that black voters will have sympathy for him because he's been indicted. But it appears that Trump is actually right, and that black voters are actually starting to feel more sympathy for him. So, how the numbers were panning out, back in July, it was at the rate they were going at the time, it was going to be 50% of independent black voters would vote for Biden. And then 16% of black independent voters would vote for Trump. Which made sense. 50% were favorable to Biden and 16% were favorable to Trump. And 66% of black voters, or 66% of black people in 2020 voted. 66.1 to be precise. Or it was like 66.1% of Americans voted. So 50% voting for Biden and 16% voting for Trump made sense. And that would be the number come around in November. However, with the new statistics that I have picked out, it looks more like 48% of black independents will vote for Biden, whereas 21% will vote for Trump. But the uncertainty for where that number came from was the uncertainty for Biden was 11% right now. And that should decrease to 3% right before the election. Because that's how it always turns out. It's always the majority of people start paying more attention, and the uncertainty number crashes into the single digits, the low single digits, 3 to 4%, right around there. Okay? And 44% of black independent voters are favorable to Biden. So, from 11%, to get down to 3%, you have to remove 8 points of uncertainty. And then from there, about half of them will go for favorable, and half of them will go for unfavorable. So, at the time of July 2nd, favorability for Biden was 46%. Right? Plus 8 divided by 2, which is 50. But now it's 44% plus 8 divided by 2, which is 48. And Trump's uncertainty is already down to 3%. So his numbers his uncertainty shouldn't decrease anymore. So his percentage shouldn't go up any further than it already is. Now currently, it's at 19%. But since that was a change of about 3, and it was 297 days or 96 days since July 2nd, at the current rate, in 226 days, it will be up to favorability of 21%. So 48% of the voters, the black independent voters, would go for Biden. And then 21% of black independent voters would go for Trump, which is a 5-point increase from where I thought it would be for Trump, and a 2-point decrease for Biden, which means that at that current rate, 69% of black independent voters will vote, which I find to be unlikely. The number should still fall around 2/3 of black independent voters, around 66 to 67%. Well, since the uncertainty for Biden is so high, I have a feeling that he's going to actually lose a lot of them to indifference, meaning that they will either not vote at all or they'll vote third party. So he'll probably actually only get around somewhere between 45 and 46% of the black independent vote. Which again, if it's 46% of the black independent vote, that's 4 points lower than I expected. Whereas Trump is 5 points higher than I expected. Now, I haven't gone through every race category yet. I have gone through and done Hispanic voters. So I'm about halfway done. But after I do one of a race of people, I'll go through and actually write notes on what I think is going to happen. And then I will determine, like, if young people are going more in favor of Biden or Trump, or if older people are going more in favor of Biden and Trump. Generally, what would happen is the older voters will not change nearly as much. For black independents, Biden's numbers decreased all across the board, except for postgraduate males of all ages, which is fascinating. But anyways, I'm not going to go through all the information because I don't have it all memorized, and this video is going to be too long as it is. But what has seemed to have happened is between the election and July 2nd, the change was significantly in Trump's favor, and based on the data I had in July 2nd of last year, Trump was going to come out on top with the independent votes of all races. But based on the data from April 23rd, I underestimated Trump and I overestimated Biden. At the rate it is going, I believe, whereas in 2020, 60%, it was 66% of independent voters voted for Biden, and 33% voted for Trump. At the rate it is going, I estimate that 60% of independent voters will vote for Trump, and 40% will vote for Biden. Now, mind you, that does not include the third-party candidates and the independent candidates. So you got to keep that in mind. But that is almost a 180 flip on where independents are voting. Almost a complete 180. If that's the case, Trump is going to win in a landslide. And since Trump doesn't need the popular vote to actually win, it's going to be electoral landslide. And at the rate it's going, he's also going to get the popular vote. Which, if that's the case, Trump's going to probably win by a higher margin in 2024 than Biden won in 2020 in the Electoral College. Now, I'm not 100% sure about this data, but it is really bad for Biden because Biden was up by like 8% in the polls in 2020. Like, it was 50 or 51 to like 43 or 42, something like that. Now he's down by 1. Now, a lot of those voters might come back for Biden. But even if Biden is up by 4 or 5 points by election time, that was what Hillary was up by. And she lost in a landslide. And I don't think Biden's numbers are going to come back, man. Especially now with all the socialists and all the left-wing and progressive candidates out there siphoning votes for Biden. And there's not a lot of right-wing candidates. You have the Constitution Party, I guess you can kind of consider the Libertarian Party. And that'll be about it. And don't let anyone fool you. Trump voters are not going to vote for Kennedy. It's going to be rare, and it's just not going to happen. So yeah, I'm pretty optimistic right now, guys. I am ecstatic right now. As I go through all the data, as I make the notes on the Hispanics and then get the notes on the other and the white categories, I'll again try to figure out some way to screen capture all this data so that I can pause the video and you can actually read through all my notes on it. But Trump's actually doing way better than I thought. Now, the one thing I am concerned about is what happens if Trump is actually convicted. And I'm kind of half and half on this. If Trump is convicted and thrown in jail, I think Trump's numbers will go up and Biden's will go down. If Trump is found innocent and he plays his cards right, he can say, they wasted all my time. They wasted all my money. This was political persecution. They were clearly going against me. And again, his numbers will go up and Biden's will go down. Because jailing your political opponent doesn't look good. Having all your cases against your political opponent failing also doesn't look good. Where this is uncertain is if Trump is jailed or he is put on house arrest. If he's jailed, his numbers will go up. If he is put on house arrest, uncertainty will probably go up, and there will be some people who will be like, he doesn't have to be jailed, he just goes on house arrest? What is this? That's unfair. He should go to the jail, and therefore his numbers may go down a little bit. Because the favorability will go to uncertain, will split between uncertain and unfavorable, whatever amount it is. So let's say his favorability went down by 4. Like 2% would go to unfavorable and 2% would go to uncertain. And then that uncertain might not come out the vote. Personally, I think no matter what happens at this point, unless Trump is removed from the board entirely, from any means, if he is whacked or if he is somehow removed by congressional decree or the GOP decide that they can't run him and are totally 100% corrupt, unless he is removed from the board somehow, I believe he is going to win no matter what. Like, no matter where the cases go, no matter what the outcomes of them are, he's going to win no matter what. Now, I just don't know if he's not convicted, if his numbers will go up. I believe they will. If he is convicted, I think the numbers will still go up. And I think the Democrats have basically just completely screwed themselves. No matter how much propaganda they put out, throwing your political opponent into jail, like Putin did with Navalny, especially since the Democrats just put up that bill that would strip Biden or strip Trump of his Secret Service if he is jailed. After that, Navalny, I believe it's now Navalny. After Navalny was killed in prison, and it seems like Democrats now want Trump to be killed in prison. Yeah, I think a lot of people, if Trump is thrown in jail, will start comparing Biden to Putin. And there will be no amount of propaganda that can stop that kind of framing. There will be no possible way to stop it, especially if they strip away his Secret Service. Now, could Trump die in that circumstance? That I'm unsure about, but now we're in speculation territory. Way in the speculation territory. I was already speculating. But I'm going to call it there. It's about 28 minutes. It's a little bit longer than I wanted, but yeah, it's just looking real good for Trump and looking real bad for Biden. It's just those damned freaking court cases, man. They're screwing everything up. And the State of the Union and the Hamas attacks being the catalyst to improve Trump's numbers. I don't know if people realize that Trump is probably more favorable to Israel than Biden is. But at the very least, Trump's stance is generally, I want people to stop dying. Now, unless the left is way more extreme than we ever believed and the centralists are somehow being dragged with them, unless all those people want more Jews to die, I think Trump's stop killing people angle will appeal to everyone. Except the progressives who really want Jews to die. But those are progressives, man. They're crazy. They're insane. It's just... literal fascists, man. Progressives are just fascists. Okay? Anyways, 29 minutes. That's it. Talk to you later, guys. Bye.